So, you might be thinking, this is a chapter on respiration. Why in the world are we talking about rice plants of all things? Well, the thing about rice plants that we have to know in context, in relation to respiration, rice plants actually have some interesting adaptations in relation to respiration. I'll explain. You see, if you've been to paddy fields and such, you will notice that when we grow rice plants, the plants have to be growing in a particular type of, they have to be not fully submerged in water, but partially submerged inside the water. That's just the way the plants grow, as I'm drawing over here. And so what seems to be the problem, right? So you can see that most parts of the plant, the stem and the roots, are submerged inside the water. So what seems to be the problem in this case? The first problem is the roots cannot easily get oxygen. Under normal circumstances, oxygen from the air are supposed to just diffuse into the soil, and from the soil it can enter the roots. But right now, there is a layer of water that is separating the air from the roots. So the oxygen is quite far away. And if you study diffusion in detail, you know that diffusion in liquid is much slower. That's just the nature of it. So if the roots do not get enough oxygen, what happens to the root cells? The root cells will undergo anaerobic respiration, which we have discussed in the previous video. And what do we know about anaerobic respiration in plants is anaerobic respiration in plants will produce something known as ethanol. And I did tell you before that ethanol can be toxic to the plant cells. So the problem is the roots cannot easily get oxygen, and if it produces ethanol, the ethanol will kill the plants. So the rice plants have developed a few adaptations to solve this problem. So what are the adaptations of the rice plants? The first adaptation is the stem of the plant is extremely long. This is good so that it ensures that the leaf is always growing above the water. And why is that a big deal if the leaf is growing above the water? So that the leaves can easily get oxygen directly from the air through gas exchange. But that doesn't solve the problem because the leaf can easily get oxygen. But now the roots are the ones that are not able to obtain oxygen, correct? That is where the second adaptation comes in. Between the leaf and the roots, obviously it's connected by the stem. The stem is actually full of loosely packed tissues known as parenchyma. Parenchyma just basically means the cells in the stem of the rice plant are loosely packed to create air spaces. So you can see those empty spaces in between there. Why is that good? Because the oxygen from the leaf can easily diffuse to the roots. And if it easily diffuses to the roots, that's a good thing. So this solves problem number one, because the roots couldn't easily get oxygen, remember? So now, because the leaf is growing above the water, it gets the oxygen, and the oxygen can easily diffuse through the empty space within the plant itself and reach the roots. And the root cells can carry out aerobic respiration. Problem number one solved. But if the rice plants do carry out anaerobic respiration, it is still fine because rice plants are more tolerant to ethanol compared to normal plants. What does that mean is a particular concentration of ethanol may kill a normal plant, but that very same concentration will not affect the rice plants at all. So the rice plants have a kind of tolerance or resistance to ethanol. But if it does have a high concentration of ethanol, it will eventually die. This is where the fourth adaptation comes in, where rice plants have a particular enzyme known as alcohol dehydrogenase. Yes, alcohol dehydrogenase was supposed to convert ethanol to ethanol, but that particular enzyme can also break down ethanol at very high concentrations. So these are the four adaptations of the rice plants. The rice plants actually had two problems. The roots couldn't easily get oxygen, and the ethanol is toxic to the plants. So to solve problem number one, the rice plants have long stem so that the leaves are growing above the water and the leaves can easily get oxygen, and the stem is full of loosely packed tissues known as parenchyma. This allows the oxygen from the leaf to easily diffuse to the roots. And problem number 2 was ethanol is toxic to the plants. So rice plants are just technically more tolerant to ethanol. So a particular concentration of ethanol that would normally kill any plants would not really affect rice plants. And of course, rice plants have enzymes. It's good to mention the name of the enzyme if you want to in the exam, but just mentioning rice plants have a particular enzyme to break down ethanol at high concentration. These are the 4 adaptations of rice plants when faced with the problem of anaerobic respiration.